Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma. We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. We are also authors and invite you to check out our books, including my books, Potted and Pruned, Homegrown and Handpicked, and Seeded and Sodded, my trilogy of gardening humor, and my new book, Creatures and Critters, Who's in My Garden?
And my book, The 2030 Something Garden Guide and No Fuss, Down and Dirty Gardening 101 for anyone who wants to grow stuff. You can ask for any of our books at your favorite bookstore or find them online wherever books are sold.
And speaking of online, you can also find us as The Garden Angelist on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And we'd love for you to join our Facebook group, The Garden Angelist Garden Club.
Now on to this week's episode.
Hi, Dee.
Hello, Carol. It's nice to see your smiling face.
It's nice to see your smiling face today.
Well, it's a sweaty face. I've been working out today, so got to get back on the treadmill, as it were. So what are you picking in the garden?
Well, I am picking squash, and I am picking the first of the green beans. I'm also picking some cucumbers, and I have a very few cherry tomatoes, but I have a ton of green tomatoes. The garden looks really good.
Yeah, you've been getting some rain, just like me.
I have been getting rain, and on Saturday evening, I dodged the proverbial bullet. North of here, they had hail and strong winds, and at the Newfields Garden, which is at our art museum, they had a ton of damage, and that's like, 10, 12 miles up the road. I feel really blessed.
Boy, you were lucky on that one. You dodged the hail bullet. So in my garden, I am also getting rain, and I got 1.5 inches last night, and 2 other storms earlier in the last week. I got about 1 inch. So far this week, perfect rain. Unusual for July in Oklahoma. I felt like I was in Indiana.
You got more than me.
I'm picking tomatoes, basil, lots of peppers, and I'm waiting on that blasted eggplant. There's lots of blooms on the eggplant, but nothing is happening. What the heck?
And it's been hot here, but not as hot as Oklahoma. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we've been having some 100s. We were supposed to have 100s all this week, but then these rainstorms came in, and so they lowered the temperature, but they raised the humidity, and it makes it much, much hotter feeling. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah, it's 90. It's only 89 here today, but it feels a lot hotter, which is, I'm grateful for the 89, because once we hit those 100s, what happens to our tomato blooms?
Nothing. They do nothing. They do absolutely nothing.
They fall off. And so, we need to tell people that so they don't worry. Also, I am making a fresh tomato sauce for pasta tonight. And over the weekend, I made refrigerator corn relish that I saw your corn plants on Instagram. Pretty soon you're going to have some corn. Now, are you doing glass gem again, or are you doing sweet corn?
It's glass gem, so I'll have to go to the farmer's market to buy the sweet corn, and which is fine, because here's the thing about my little garden. If I did sweet corn, I'd get maybe 6 ears that were a good size. It's really, I'd rather just grow glass gem, which is something you can't find.
And it's just pretty, and then you can use it later as popcorn if you want to. And refrigerator corn relish is made with sweet corn, and it's delicious. And I made it in a caprese salad for a wedding shower I held over the weekend. Yes, people, I held a wedding shower for my best friend's daughter. She's the only one I would do in COVID-19 times, but we all wore masks, and we kind of were socially distant, and I think it'll be okay. I really do.
Which reminds me, I have basil I could pick. I could make a caprese salad. I think I might.
Oh, I think you should, because it was really good. And with your own homegrown tomatoes. Anyway, we're going to link to a caprese salad. But did you know, I didn't know this. Did you know that a traditional caprese salad does not have balsamic vinegar on it? Which I'd always had it with balsamic vinegar.
What does it have?
Just olive oil. Olive oil and salt. Okay, so I made it that way for the shower, but I think it's really good with balsamic vinegar too. But anyway, everybody enjoyed the food, and we were all really careful, and we had hand sanitizer, and nobody put their hands on anything. So it all worked out good.
That's good. And the other thing last week, as I had visitors to my garden.
Visitors, winged visitors, or?
No, my sister brought her granddaughter over.
Oh, okay, cool. I've had a couple of visitors.
A visitor really kind of highlights where your weeds are. So I spent a lot of time after they left. I got a whole section weeded out that just looked terrible. It's like, come back. It's all weeded now.
The life of the garden. Yeah, I had visitors here, and a lot of them went outside, even though it was blazing hot that day. And I just kept thinking, I hope they don't see, all the flaws. But you know what? We see them, but people who come visit usually don't.
They were mostly impressed.
Yeah.
And my sister said, when all those tomatoes start ripening, she says, don't let them go to waste. I'll take some off your hand if you have extra.
I gave tomatoes to the people who came to the shower. I just handed them Ziplocs and said, take anything you want because I have that many more out there. And they couldn't believe it. So fresh tomato sauce tonight for dinner with my fresh basil. And by the way, let's just talk about that basil, that Emerald Towers.
Love Emerald Towers basil. My sister saw it and she says, why is it so tall? And I says, because it's Emerald Towers and it is wonderful.
It is wonderful basil in both of our opinions. You can grow it from seed. It is a seed variety. It takes forever to turn into, to go to seed. Mine's still not blooming, which is amazing when it gets hot here.
The trial plant that I got last year never really flowered until I'm going to say October.
Wow. So that's why it's so hard to get seed from. We had to really look for the seed this year when we decided to plant it.
Right. Burpee's had it. And we're going to have to put a link to Emerald Towers basil seed.
Basil now, yeah. So I'm going to use my basil from Emerald Towers tonight and a whole bunch of my tomatoes. Yay.
So let's get going on our topics. I have a quote for you.
Chat. Sorry, guys.
Ready for the quote?
Absolutely.
There is a place in every childhood, an enchanted place where colors are brighter, the air softer, and the morning more fragrant than ever again. By our favorite author, Elizabeth Lawrence.
Yes, and I'm going to tell you right up front, that was my grandmother's house.
And I'm going to tell you right up front, that was our backyard, my dad's garden.
I loved my grandmother's house, and the air was sweeter there, and the colors more beautiful. In fact, I got a little bit teary when you were saying that, because that's true. I can't wait to do that for my grandbaby.
Yay!
I'll get to be her. So let's talk about ordering bulbs.
Yeah, it reminded me back in the day, we would go in the fall to get tulip and daffodil and crocus bulbs at the local little garden center, which is long gone. And they would be all set up in their cardboard bins, and we had these little white sacks, and we'd look at the pictures and pick them out and put them in the bags and write what they were on there and then plant them later. And that's what our flower topic is. Dee, I'm afraid if people don't start ordering bulbs now, when it comes time to plant and they start looking for bulbs, we might have a repeat of the seed shortage, which was temporary, of the spring because everybody wants to garden.
Right. And we're so glad everyone wants to garden. We really are. So to all of our friends who listen to us, you can order your bulbs now, whichever bulbs you want. And there's a lot of places that you can order them where they will set up gardens for you. So they'll tell you which daffodils to plant with which tulips, and that, different groups do, you can buy different, different selections so that you don't have to figure it out for yourself is what I'm trying to say.
Right. You can buy a collection.
You can buy a collection. That's a good way to put it. And if you order them now, which Carol and I will be doing, then your bulbs will come to you at the right planting time. You just tell them what zone you're in, and then they ship them to you at the right time, and then you plant them, which is actually better than buying them in those bins like I used to buy them too. And we do still have a few places in Oklahoma City that sell them that way.
Right. And the problem is, if you go to the big box stores or you go to the big warehouse stores, like late August, early September, they'll start to have bags of daffodils and tulips. And folks, that is way too soon around here to be buying those and trying to store them. And you are much better off if you buy them online. And they won't charge your credit card, usually until they ship, until they pack it. And if
you want something unusual, That's another thing. Like Old House Gardens is one of our favorite places to buy unusual bulbs. And no, they don't sponsor this podcast, but if they want to, they always could. There's some unusual daffodils. I bought a whole bunch of antique iris for the spring garden.
Yeah, they have all your heirloom varieties. So if you're into the heirloom varieties, or you're looking for that crocus that's just like Grandma had,
They have
that's
them.
the place.
And then our friends Brent and Becky's bulbs, that's a great place to buy bulbs. Brent and Becky know more about daffodils. I mean, all bulbs, but they specialize in daffodils. And wow, you can get really cool ones.
Right. They've actually, Brent has actually bred some daffodils
Yeah, he hybridized
and has
them.
some name varieties and stuff. But, now I ordered some stuff from them this spring, and they had a deal where they gave you a certain % off if you let them charge your card right then.
Early.
And so I did that, but they won't ship them until fall.
And the reason that it helps these bulb companies, a lot of them are having sales right now, is because then they know what to tell the people in Holland to harvest and send over here. So it's a lot easier. And then we won't have one of those hopefully crazy backlogs like we did with the seeds this spring, which was just nuts. I never got reimbursed for a few I bought like 3 grafted tomato plants, and they came dead, and I never got reimbursed. But oh well. And then one other bulb source that we really like is Van Engelen. Van Engelen is the wholesale part of John Sheepers, and they have some great collections that you can put together. There's also Color Blends. Color Blends is known for their collections, and I actually was given some by Color Blends last year, and I featured it on my blog this year.
I've already ordered some stuff from Brent and Becky's, and I ordered some Kaunadaxa, the Glory of the Snow from Van Engelen,
Yeah.
because I needed 1,000, D. I needed 1,000
You're going to plant 1,000 Kaunadaxa?
in my lawn.
Wow, that's awesome, but I don't want to do that.
Well, and here's why. You want to know why I get it? So normally I buy like 500 crocuses. Easter is the beginning of April. I can't remember the exact day. And so when I looked this spring, by the beginning of April, the crocuses are all done, but the Kaunadaxa were blooming beautifully at the beginning of April. And I thought, for the world's greatest Easter egg hunt, wouldn't 1,000 more Glory of the Snow be pretty at the beginning of April?
Yes, it will be pretty. Did you buy just blue, or did you get the pink varieties?
I got the lawn mixture variety. So it'll be pink, blue, dark blue, light blue, white.
I planted a whole bunch of those last year too in my garage garden, and they looked great this spring. They really did. I didn't notice that they attracted my bees very well, and that was part of my point of planting them. So I will not be buying another 1,000. I did buy some Scilla because I wanted to see blue bee's knees. I wanted to see blue pollen on my bees. That's the whole reason I was going to do it. And then I didn't have time to plant them. So I didn't see it. And I wasted those bulbs. And I'm just being honest with people. Things happen.
Yeah, packet of seed never gets sown, or bulbs don't get planted. But so anyway, our recommendation to everybody is to go and order your bulbs and then forget about it. And then when the time comes to plant, they will magically show up at your doorstep, and you will be so excited.
And while you're ordering those bulbs, don't forget to order yourself some amaryllis so that you'll have Christmas blooms. And that'll make you really happy, because you can also buy them later and they'll bloom in January or February, but maybe you want 3 white ones for Christmas time.
Right. And then the other thing, the old timers used to put bone meal in the holes when they planted bulbs, and you do not need to be doing nonsense like that.
Yeah, you don't have to buy bone meal. You don't have to buy anything. Just plant them. And if you want to, you can grow. If you're worried about things eating your tulips, grow them in pots. And there's ways to do that, and we've talked about it before. So I grow them in pots a lot of times.
So that's our flower topic. You ready to move on to veggies?
I am. Do you want me to do the quote?
I want you to do the quote.
I don't know how to pronounce Leo's name, but we'll do our best. There are many miracles in the world to be celebrated, and for me, garlic is the most deserving. Leo Buscaglia.
That's how
That's
I would have
funny.
said it.
Okay, good. So we're again talking about bulbs, and this time we're talking about garlic bulbs.
Because I've gotten a couple of emails from garlic bulb suppliers saying, hey, it's time to order your garlic. And garlic is something that this surprises people. It is around here, it's planted in the fall, the same time you would plant your tulip bulbs and things.
Yeah.
And so they will run out
Oh, yeah.
if you don't order it. And you want to order from reputable suppliers because you want to have virus-free or named garlic varieties, and that way you'll get something special.
And there's two kinds of garlic out. Well, three kinds if you count elephant garlic, but there's soft neck and there's hard neck. Hard neck garlic is hardly ever sold in the stores because it doesn't transport as well and it doesn't last as long. It goes bad faster than soft neck does. So almost all of the garlic that you see in the stores is soft neck. Now I'm going to tell you something else that's going to probably distress our listeners. A lot of the garlic that is in the stores, if it's not organic, comes from China. I'm not sure why. Probably because it's cheap. I personally don't want garlic from China ever, ever, ever. So I actually buy organic garlic or I plant it. And I've grown garlic many times. I think I'm done though. So personally.
Yeah, the thing about garlic is it takes up space in the garden.
A really long time.
Yeah. So you have to carefully decide where you're going to put it in the fall. Yeah. Because around here, you're probably not going to harvest it until the end of June.
Right. And this year I harvested mine early and people were all freaked out about it, but I did it because I wanted to put lavender on the edge of my potager. So I think I'm done with garlic for now, but I think it's a great thing to plant because it tastes really good.
Right. And when you buy a bulb, you split it into the cloves, and every clove you plant is going to be another bulb. So the other thing is, unless you really like garlic on everything, be careful how much you plant because there's only so much you can use.
Yeah, you don't need that much. And if you're growing hard garlic, it may go bad before you get it all planted. Get it all eaten, especially. If you want to do those garlic braids, you need to grow the soft garlic.
Right. Now, I'm going to tell people I don't know if it's sad news, but around here and north, you really have to grow a hardneck variety. It requires the winter to be cool so that it'll sprout in the spring. But the soft necks just do not do well in this area. So you really do need to pick hardneck varieties.
Well, that's really interesting because in Oklahoma, you can grow either one and they do just fine.
Well, you're warmer than we are.
We are. It's a little bit of warm paradise.
Exactly. So they are starting to advertise their garlic, and we'll put a link to several sources, including Botanical Interest Seeds, Burpee, and Johnny Selected Seeds. And no, they are not sponsors either, but those are good sources, and we are happy to pass that information along.
Do you also want to tell people that about the scapes?
Yeah. The scapes.
Because that's a delicacy.
Yeah, that's a spring. I'll call it a late spring delicacy. But you don't want your garlic to flower because that puts the energy in the wrong place in the flower, and you want it to go into making that big old fat bulb down there. So when it starts to flower, that's called a scape. You can cut those off, and then you can chop those up and use those in cooking as you would garlic. And it's a nice flavor.
Oh my goodness, it is a nice flavor. And elephant garlic is actually part of the leek family.
Right.
So it's a type of leek.
Yeah.
And it's very, very mild. And I have never grown it, so I can't say a thing about it.
I also have not grown it. And maybe someday we'll talk about growing leeks in general, and then we'll talk about elephant garlic.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more then. So.
Okay.
Are we going to talk about our book on our bookshelf? You know what? We should have taken a quote from this book because he had some really good quotes in it, but we didn't think about it.
And I personally do not have the book in my possession to give you a quote from it. So,
well, because she sent it to me.
Right.
And I read it.
So we're going to talk about, Honey and Venom, Confessions of an Urban Beekeeper by Andrew Cote. Right. And I got this at the local bookshop. We didn't know it existed. And I saw it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to read that. I'm going to send it off to Dee. And so I read it, and it is a really readable book. I mean, it's very pleasant to read.
It didn't take long to read it.
Lots of good stories, and you learn a little bit about beekeeping and beekeeping in New York City. You learn some stuff about Martha Stewart.
Yeah, the part about Martha Stewart was fun.
Yeah, and I sent the book then off to you.
You did. And you sent it off with the caveat that you wish he had talked a little bit more about beekeeping. And yes, I wish he had talked a little bit more about beekeeping. My review of it is Andrew's a bit of a name dropper. For about the first half of the book, he just tells you everybody famous that he ever met. And that's because he's the head of the Beekeepers Association in New York City. And so he knows a lot of people in New York City. Then the second half of the book was basically a tell-all of all the bad behavior of various beekeepers.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, wow, some of these guys, I'm surprised there were a few he didn't have their names in there, and that was good because they might really be mad at him. A few, he went ahead and listed their names. So I'll say this for Andrew. He's a tough guy. And he isn't scared of anybody. So in reading the book, now I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it because I did. It was a really fun book to read. And I really loved the part about the Museum of Modern Art's sculpture with the woman's head as a beehive and what it took to make that happen. And I really loved the part about the United Nations. I thought that part was really interesting. There's now a National Bee Day and a World Bee Day. And they're both celebrated at various times of the year. And so that's really cool. And I knew about World Bee Day because several of my beekeeper friends on Instagram talked about it. He's a way better beekeeper than I am. I'm having a rough beekeeping year this year, partly because of me. But I thought it was interesting. I was amazed at how bad some beekeepers are. It made me feel a little better about myself.
Well, it seems like some beekeepers, they were into beekeeping because it's trendy, but they didn't really understand what they were doing. Mm-hmm. I was impressed with the fact that he has Bees Without Borders, and he and his father would go literally around the world to third world nations and help people become better beekeepers because, beekeeping, it really is a worldwide thing.
Right. Right. In certain countries, it's a great way to make a lot of money so that you can actually survive because some places don't have sweeteners and honey is really, really prized. It's prized here too, especially when you know how hard it is for the bees to make the honey. I also thought the part about the candy, the cherries, was really interesting. So basically we liked the book, everybody, and it was really good. And I thought Andrew's a fourth generation beekeeper, and I thought his family story was really interesting too.
It is very interesting, and I love the part about his dad being the beekeeper for Martha Stewart. And we won't give away.
We don't want to give that part away. You guys got to buy the book and read it.
But get the book and read it. You will love it. It is a great story, but I'm telling you, it is really good.
It was
fun.
We
enjoyed it.
Really fun.
So we're happy to pass that information along to our listeners. And go to your independent bookstore and ask them to get you that book, and you will enjoy it.
Yes. And then we go on to our dirt, and we're going to talk about another podcast we like.
Right. And the people are going to think, wow, you want people to listen to a podcast other than the Garden Angelus?
Sure. There's room for everybody.
There's room for everybody. I do not recall how I stumbled upon this podcast, but I stumbled upon this podcast earlier this spring or late in the spring. It's called The Stubborn Light of Things with Melissa Harrison. And
yeah, it's great. She's from Suffolk. So Suffolk. She's English. And she is a nature writer. And her beautiful accent is lovely to listen to. I listen to her on the treadmill.
She's a nature writer and a novelist. And in her words, she says, I'm lucky enough to be able to walk out of my cottage straight into Suffolk's. I can't say that because I'm from Indiana.
Suffolk. Don't say the
Suffolk's
L. Suffolk.
Beautiful open countryside. She says, as spring breaks over the British Isles and summer settles in, I'll be documenting the wonder and richness of the natural world and bringing it into as many homes as I can. She has guest spots with other nature lovers. She reads extracts. She writes a monthly column for the Times called Nature Notebook, which, as she'll tell you on every single podcast episode, is going to be a book published in November.
Right. Which is why she has a podcast.
Yeah. And then she reads snippets from, or actually she has a man read snippets from the diaries of Gilbert White, who is England's most famous naturalist from the 1700s.
Yep.
And anyway, it's really nice, and it's got great reviews. And one of them said, I think this is the way, calming and restorative. It's just pleasant to listen to it.
It is. I listened to the episode where she was looking for a particular bird. She's a birder too. And she was trying, it was some type of a pigeon. I don't remember right off the top of my head. It was a special pigeon. And or a dove. I think it was a dove. I'm sorry, people. I'm not much of a birder. I do my best, but I care about birds. And her point was that she cannot find this bird anymore. And so you hear all these beautiful bird sounds in the background, and she actually tells you what all of these calls are. And I just thought that was really fascinating because I know some of my birds, their calls, but right. I wouldn't know enough to be able to listen for something that doesn't come around here anymore. So just really, if you care about nature, and her voice is beautiful. So it's all those things.
It is. And there's so many, I don't know if the word is acerbic voices these days.
Yes.
Yammering and things, that this is a nice respite from all that.
Right.
And like you said, when you're out gardening, if you're not listening to us, the Gardenangelists, and like our special weeding episode or something like that, this is a nice one to listen to. It's very calming.
It is. And I think during these times with COVID still hanging on, and I think most of us thought we'd be done with all of this by now, but we're not. And so we all kind of have COVID fatigue. And I think her podcast, like I hope ours does, takes you away from all of that.
Right.
Like our gardens
Exactly.
do.
And I think when her book comes out in November, I'm probably going to have to end up getting it.
Yeah, I might too, because she is a very good writer. And if I lived in Suffolk, I think you'd have to have it, you know?
Oh, yeah. If you lived anywhere in England, you'd have to have it.
And I've never been to Suffolk, and I would like to come sometime again. I miss England. I think it's one of my favorite places to go.
And I can barely say Suffolk.
You don't say folk. You say the bad word with "suff" on the front of it. It's very hard to do. You say Worcestershire, not Worcestershire. It's hard, though. I understand.
It is. It is. So, and I think, I think about people visiting gardens, and you talk about how when people visit the gardens in England, they always serve you cake and
cordial
tea.
And tea.
Cordial and tea.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely.
And I think that's a very pleasant thing. So
here I would serve iced tea as we walk around because it is blazing hot. And who knows if I'm saying Suffolk right? Maybe I'm saying it wrong.
Well, you know what? If we listened to her, we probably could.
Well, we did. And obviously we can't remember because we're over 50, and that's the way it goes.
I'm over 60, Dee. So
I was being extra good. Okay, well, I'm getting there. Okay,
anyway,
so that's our podcast for today.
Yes, and we hope it was calming and restorative for people to listen to.
We do, because we have so much fun doing it.
We do. We want to thank everyone for listening to The Gardenangelists. If you like our podcast, please tell your friends about us.
And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review. That helps us get noticed by others and their algorithm.
Yes, and be sure to check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate today. Bye until next week.
Bye.